There's really no bad answer to this. What is the who is the best Punisher in live action? Now, I'm gonna keep Dolph Lundgren out of it. I never watched the 80s or the 70s, whatever year it was, version with Dolph Lundgren. I never watched that one, so I can't give an answer on that one. But Thomas Jane, I believe that's how you say his name, Ray Stevenson, rest in peace to him, and John Berthel. Again, I'm terrible at names. If I said the names wrong, I apologize. But y'all know who I'm talking about. Those three were good as Punisher. I didn't have an issue with any of them. But if I have to choose one person, and it might not be the famous answer that a lot of people say, but I'm going to have to say Ray Stevenson was the best depiction of Punisher. Cold, was barely any emotion. They did the slick hair. He was the best. If you look at the comics, best representation. Like, it looked like Warzone was underrated in my opinion. It got hate for no reason in my opinion. It was a straight action, but I don't know what people was looking for in that movie. If you read the comic books of Punisher, Warzone looked like a movie that was taken out of a Punisher comic. Now, was it as fleshed out as Thomas Jane's version? No. To be real, Warzone was, it was like a straight up action bloodbath movie. That's it. But it had the perfect attitude and look of Punisher. Ray Stevenson embodied the comic I read. I know there was different versions of Punisher, but the comics I read, the coldness of stares, the style, brutality with no emotion, Ray Stevenson pulled it off perfectly. Now, like I said, there's no knock to the other two. I love all three of them. But if I had to choose one, based on the comics I've read, and just based on what I've read, Ray Stevenson embodied it better. Now, John Berthel, to me, I'm sorry if I'm saying his name wrong, but the one who's playing Punisher now, I love him as an actor. I love his emotion, his like all that stuff, like when he gets that scream and all that. Do it now, character. Like, he's very emotional. But if I have to keep it real with you, I believe John added that to Punisher. It's not a bad thing, but I don't remember Punisher being as emotional as you see John portrays him as. I could be wrong. Maybe it's a comic I don't know Punisher being so emotional, but John takes a different tone of him. He still embraces the core of Punisher, cold and all that stuff, but he uses coldness in his actions. But when he talks and, face to face with people, he gets more emotional than the comics depict. From what I've read, again, I'm just going on by what I've read. So it'll be between Ray Stevenson and John. Jane will have to go last, but if I'm looking at the perfect depiction that I know of Punisher, it's Warzone. Because I ain't gonna front, I would love to see Warzone. I would love to see Ray Stevenson get fleshed out the way John Berthel did. If Ray Stevenson's Punisher had the writing and the storytelling of John Berthel's Netflix, Disney Plus Punisher, I think people would have liked that version better. We will never know. He was only given one movie. It's kind of like Andrew Garfield. And to me, Andrew Garfield was the best depiction of Spider-Man. He just wasn't given enough, like Tobey Maguire and what's the dude's name from Avengers? That Spider-Man. No way, I forgot his name. He wasn't given that leeway, that writing. Writing can change a situation when it comes to the actors, but it doesn't change the fact that someone played the character better than another. I think Andrew Garfield played a better Spider-Man than the other two, and I think Ray Stevenson played a better Punisher than the other two. None of them was bad casting, so that's a good thing. That's why I said there's no bad answer. But if I'm thinking comic accuracy, if you watch Warzone, actually, I just watched that not too long ago. I like that. Like I told you, that was overhated in my opinion. That's a straight up action movie with the attitude of Punisher. He always had that famous line that felt like some Punisher would do. Burn in hell. Like when he looked at the villain and he had to decide who to kill, and he didn't like that. He didn't like the answer the villain gave him, like the situation the villain gave him, and he just looked at him with the perfect camera angle. Burn in hell. Just the way he delivered that felt like a Punisher I read in the comics. And so shout out to Ray Stevenson. Rest in peace to him. In my opinion, he wasn't given enough. Like, he wasn't given a better chance. You can't help the writing and the storytelling of somebody. I always believe if Ray Stevenson got the leeway like John Berthel did, I think people would have definitely noticed how great Ray Stevenson. Or maybe people do. Let me know in the comment section right now. If you agree and you see it, you think that, okay, maybe Warzone wasn't the greatest Punisher project, but Ray Stevenson was the greatest Punisher. That's how I feel with Andrew Garfield. I don't really care for his movies. Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 was okay, but he was perfect. I always wish they took him and put him in the MCU. They never did, and there's no knock to the new Spider-Man. I think he's good too, but Andrew Garfield was, if you want perfection or close to it, Andrew Garfield, Ray Stevenson. But I'm interested in seeing what the answer is for this channel. I've never seen this channel before. This is what encouraged the question. Which live action Punisher is the most accurate by heaps good? I'll put the link in the description of the video. Let's see what this channel has to say.
Arguably
Let me know in the
the
comment section
toughest
what's your
man
answer
in the
too.
Marvel Universe, Frank Castle, has had 4 live-action iterations, each being a product of their generation. We have an 80s action schlock, a gritty
Yeah, I've never
crime
seen that
drama,
one, so I can't
a
say nothing
brutal
about that.
violent pulp, and a long-form psychological realism piece that was built for a product of their generation. We have an 80s action schlock, a gritty crime drama, a brutal violent pulp, and a long-form psychological realism piece that was built for a streaming platform. With 4 very different representations, showcasing 4 very different elements of the Punisher. Each representation is also reflecting a different era of filmmaking. Given how different these portrayals are, surely there has to be one that reigns supreme, one that punishes harder. Let's begin by defining who the Punisher is as a character. Frank Castle is one of Marvel's most stubborn anti-heroes in both
that animation was good too. That was a good depiction of Punisher.
Unlike his peers, if you want to call them that, within the heroing world who fight for justice, truth, or any other noble cause, Frank fights for something much darker: punishment. Frank Castle doesn't believe in redemption, mercy, or second chances. He is a force of nature. He is inevitable. Criminals aren't to be rehabilitated, they are to be eradicated. The Punisher, like most anti-heroes, first appeared as a villain within the pages of 1974's The Amazing Spider-Man issue 129. Originally a gun for hire with a strict moral code of taking out only criminals, this base then informed a rich backstory as a character then gained popularity. See, Frank Castle wasn't always the Punisher. Frank at one point in time was Captain Frank Castle, a brave and decorated Marine serving in the Vietnam War. When he got back, he attempts to readjust to family life, being supported by his wife, Maria, and his 2 children, Lisa and Frank Jr. The Castle family decide to take a trip to Central Park on what should have been a very peaceful family picnic. When the family then witnesses a mob execution, they are then fired upon. This leaves the family riddled with bullets and Frank as the only survivor. He did try to follow the rules. He turned to the justice system, trusting the judge to deliver punishment. All that was delivered upon was corruption, loopholes, and the Castle's killers.
Oh, I forgot about the game.
If the law wouldn't deliver punishment, Frank would. From here forward, Frank Castle became something darker. He was no longer a husband or even a man. He was a soldier in an endless war, a force of vengeance with no endgame. Frank's story isn't just brutality, it's tragedy. His war will never end. No matter how many criminals he kills, there will always be more. He cannot win this war, and Frank knows this. Compare him to characters like Batman, who lost his parents.
I was literally just thinking this. As he was talking, I was literally just thinking of not Batman in general, but Gotham City. I was like, dang. Imagine what Gotham would be like with the Punisher there instead of Batman. Because I always say Batman has the darkest, craziest villains ever. You put Punisher in there, 90% of them ain't going to... They ain't going to make it, bro. That's what I said. Gotham is... The villains are blessed to have Batman. As dark and brutal as he is, Batman ain't going to kill. But when you think of the villains Gotham has, if you put the Punisher in there with the Joker, Scarecrow, Two-Face, Riddler, all these psychos, bro. Bro, no. Actually, Red Hood, in a way, was a good depiction of what Punisher would do. Yeah, in a way. Punisher, I think, would do worse, but Gotham's blessed to have Batman. As much as they hate him, Better than having Punisher.
Frank
As crazy as
rejects
Gotham is.
any chance at moving on. He also had opportunities to find peace, but he refuses them all. Because unlike heroes who strive to make the world better, Frank doesn't believe in a better world. He believes only in punishment. So from this basis, what makes a good representation of the Punisher? Number one, he is defined by his origin. Frank is not just motivated by revenge, however. Sure, it's what started his journey, but he is a wildfire that refuses to be suppressed. He has a complete severance from a normal life. He will not stop. Number
I
two,
love that
his
series,
strict
bro.
moral code.
I like him
If you
in
hurt
the Daredevil
innocent,
show
you
too.
deserve death. He has no tolerance for crime or corruption. However, he will absolutely not stand harming the innocent. His violence is targeted and purposeful. Bringing us to our next criteria, number three, he is a highly trained US Marine and Special Forces operative with skills in urban warfare, marksmanship, hand-to-hand combat, and demolitions. In a universe where he regularly needs to compete with superhumans, the Punisher is inhumanly focused and gifted when it comes to taking out his target. And lastly, his endless war and isolation. His war cannot be won, only fought. He has no teams, no sidekicks, and no allies. Even his relationships, like that with the Thunderbolts, Daredevil, or even Microchip, are strained and temporary. Let's take this criteria and look at our first live-action version of The Punisher, Dolph Lundgren's 1989 film.
Yeah, I'd never
The
seen
Punisher.
that.
Now, I love Lundgren as an actor. It's hard to launch the following criticisms of the film knowing how much this man has pioneered his genre of film, but I will be honest, I'm not a fan of this movie. Yes, there's some brutal action scenes. Yes, his family are killed off at the start, and the movie reminds you of this pretty much adequately, but it's just so generic. For one, his family death was an intentional mob hit that was designed to take out Frank Castle as he was an undercover police detective. So we're already messing with a perfect origin. He also doesn't wear the classic Punisher skull, and overall the character doesn't have the same moral code as the Punisher we know and love. He actually teams up with Franco, the mob boss who ordered the hit on his family, to take out the Yakuza. Yes, he promises that Franco will die after they take out the Yakuza, and he delivers that promise, but comic book Frank would just kill Franco the second
Yeah, I
that
was like, he
dies.
ain't teaming up.
Also, his beef with the Yakuza is weak, and his characterization of hunting gangs does not live up to his comic book influences, making this movie feel
I keep forget how tall Dolph
In the
Lundgren.
end,
You saw he
this
walked in
character
that
is
building.
hardly the Punisher, and is just a copy-paste 80s action movie. Next up, we have Thomas Jane's 2004
He played it good,
movie, The
but
Punisher.
not good enough,
Now, I'm
like
not
to
gonna be
comic
counting the
accuracy for
YouTube
me.
short called Dirty Laundry with Thomas Jane in it, purely
Compared
because
to
it's
Warzone
literally
and,
called the bootleg
John
universe,
Burtham.
and it isn't canon. I still recommend watching it if you got a spare 10 minutes.
Wait,
but
I'm sorry, what'd he
Punisher
say?
takes Punisher, and it's just a copy-paste 80s action movie. Next up, we have Thomas Jane's 2004 movie, The Punisher. Now, I'm not going to be counting the YouTube short called Dirty Laundry with Thomas Jane in it, purely because it's literally called the bootleg universe, and it isn't canon. I still recommend watching it if you got a spare 10 minutes.
I never
but
heard about that
Punisher takes
YouTube
way
short.
too long to decide to start punishing. So even if I was
He
to
looked more
look at
brutal
it,
there than he
I
did in the
wouldn't be rating
movie,
it high
than
either.
the Punisher
But I
movie.
will say it feels more like the Punisher than his actual movie version.
Yeah, I'm about to say, even as like
If I was
his
to say
death
anything
stare.
nice about the 2004 Punisher movie, it would be that the fight with the Russian is pretty fun.
Yeah.
Sure, Thomas Jane seems sassy, having a couple moments in the fight where he literally cocks an eyebrow at the Russian, and his fighting style is not as cold or brutal as the Punisher we would like, but it's a fun scene nonetheless. My criticisms of this piece seem to take a page out of Lundgren's book. They change the origin again. Frank is a detective, and the mob organize a hit on his whole family. And by whole family, I mean parents, cousins, kids, everyone. It's almost cartoonish. And from there, it's another revenge film. That's why this doesn't work, because in the comics, Castle's motivations come from a random, senseless act of
He
mob
wasn't
violence.
dark enough, like
This reinforced his war and crime as an ideology, not just personal revenge. Frank Castle's war and crime should feel universal, not personal. Well, as not personal as killing someone's family can be, because there's two elements at play here that seem to have been switched around. The act of Frank's family being shot down is meant to feel like a personal loss to the character committed by an indifferent system of crime and corruption. This scene had to massacre the levels of the Uchiha clan and was also a personal grudge against Frank. There's even a subplot in this movie where Frank tries to gaslight the main villain into thinking his wife is cheating on him with his main henchman. Frank is meant to be a military tactician, not a jealous ex. Last bit of criticism I'll launch Tom Jane's way is that his portrayal of the Punisher seems more brooding and passive rather than an unstoppable war machine. He spends a lot of the time sulking and drinking
Yeah.
rather than actually punishing criminals.
Yeah, he was just
A lot of his
quiet and
fights
to
are
himself,
lacking
but that
the
doesn't make
military
him
discipline and tactful expertise
Frank.
that we need. At least they actually have him wearing the skull shirt in this movie though. Now let's get to the meat of this video. The only real competition here was between the late great Ray Stevenson's 2008 Punisher Warzone movie and
John.
Bernthal's
Yep,
Punisher
that's what I was
series.
thinking. I said it,
Now,
them
both
too.
these representations are near perfect. It's
Yes.
hard to pick a winner. But if I was to make any argument why this may be an unfair fight, it would be that we have spent so much more time with Bernthal than
Thank
anyone
you.
else.
See, okay, he gets it. He gets it. I literally said that. I was like, if Warzone, Ray Stevenson was given the amount of space that John did, bro, imagine Ray Stevenson in the Netflix Punisher. And again, no knock to John. I think he's great too. But when you talk about greatest I don't think he was given a fair fight in this, because a lot of people know the Netflix / Disney Plus version. This was only one movie, and as much as I think it's underrated, Warzone I'm talking about, it is not the greatest script writing, storytelling Punisher movie. Ray Stevens, like his performance sold it. But yeah, I'm glad he said that, because yeah, it's not fair comparing this to a TV series.
Just to maybe it's hard to pick a winner.
Ray wasn't given
If I was to make
more of a
any
chance.
argument why this may be an unfair fight, it would be that we have spent so much more time with Bernthal than anyone else. Just to maybe recapture why Ray Stevenson is still in the race, however, let's revisit our points. Both John Bernthal and Stevenson have great scenes showcasing their origins. Both were random acts of violence, as we see the classic family death in the park scene when Stevenson's Punisher is visiting his family's grave. Now, I will deduct some points from Bernthal for this, however. Yes, we have the nightmare sequences, which are amazing, and yes, his war started because Castle believed it was random mob violence, which is how the Punisher works best, but it is revealed to both audience and Castle that the mob violence was just a cover-up for an organized hit from Colonel Ray Schoonover and Operation Cerberus leader William Rawlins to deter Captain Frank Castle from exposing their war crimes in the Middle East. In my opinion, this weakens Bernthal's depiction of the Punisher's origin, as now his enemy isn't crime, but it's deep state operations, shady government conspiracies. It definitely muddies the waters. Whereas we have Stevenson right over here. We have that flashback by the grave. Later on, he has an interaction with a child that he saves and his own child's belongings that he has been keeping safe. It's just perfect. Okay, our second point, his strict moral code. Now, I actually enjoy when characters have a plot that does stray from their moral code to a point. We need our characters to go through something that challenges their ethos. To be honest, both characters have had something like this happen. Stevenson accidentally kills a cop who was undercover in a mob sting. Now, it's not like the Punisher likes cops. Actually, in the comics, he is specifically against the cops, going as far to tell a police officer that if he wanted a role model, to look to Captain America and not him. Because if cops did their job, well, there wouldn't be a need for the Punisher. But he also doesn't kill cops unless they're corrupt. Stevenson, after killing his cop, almost hangs up their Punisher mantle.
Yeah,
This
that was
is a
that
large part
animated
of
movie
this
I was talking about with Punisher 2, Avengers Confidential, I believe it was called. And he had that scene. I'm not spoiler, but he had that scene with the Marine and how it scarred him when he accidentally killed the Marine. I like that little nugget they put in there.
And the turmoil.
As crazy as he is, he still has a cold with that.
Whereas Bernthal has his discourse with Daredevil and the lawyer gang.
I love
You
that
have
scene,
classic
by the way.
argument of the rooftop scene.
That
Almost directly
scene,
ripped
people are comparing that and the recent one on the Daredevil's Born Again, the recent episode where Frank and Daredevil was talking, or Matt Murdock was talking. They comparing them together. I'm not. I love that scene in Daredevil Born Again, but that part in the rooftop, that was classic. That is going to be not just the best Punisher Daredevil moment. That's probably one of the best Marvel moments, live action moments ever. That rooftop scene, I could watch that over and over again.
out of the comics.
Take the shot,
only
Red.
bit that
Take the
don't
shot.
enjoy
I
is
love that
he let
scene.
the Murdoch lawyers try to get him free, to which he only throws the case so that he can get close to Wilson Fisk in prison. I just don't think Castle would entertain any of this. However, if the argument stopped here, then this win goes to Bernthal, as on paper, the Punisher throwing a court case to get locked up and put near more criminals to punish is a lot more in character than killing an undercover cop. But there is one scene where Stevenson showcases the Punisher's strict moral code that I just don't think we've had all throughout the streaming show's runtime. We have a showdown between the crime family Castle has been hunting the entire movie. We have the detective who's been trying to put Castle behind bars, and the family of the slain cop under siege in their family home. Castle has successfully saved the family. He was literally holding a child in his arms. One of the main henchmen of the crime family is sitting at the dining room table as his peers have escaped, and the detective is about to arrest him. Any other hero would consider this the end of the conflict.
Right, not
the police
him.
officer is about to arrest the bad guy, and the innocents have been saved. But that doesn't matter to the Punisher. Without hesitation, as soon as the opportunity arises, he blasts a giant hole in the
with the kid in his
arms
arms and just walks away.
There are children present. The cop that was trying to arrest
Doesn't
him
care.
is now the leading witness. None of this matters because the Punisher has punished. Now, our third criteria is tactical genius.
No flinching,
Looking back at
nothing.
Stevenson's Warzone, this is the most tactical Punisher we have. He is brutal, cold,
Yeah.
methodical. There's one scene that I want to point to, that being Castle's assault on Don Casser's party that opens the movie. And I think this is my main issue with Bernthal's Punisher. He doesn't really plan many fights. We get the sniper shot across country lines at the start of episode 1, season 1 of The Punisher, and a couple of the skirmishes he has in the second season of Daredevil. But come on, compared to that of Punisher Warzone, we have Stevenson plan an assault with multiple siege tactics. Yes, it's over the top. There was absolutely no need for him to hang upside down from that
Yeah,
chandelier.
that's what I said,
But
you
this
know.
is also
Some
the same
parts
guy
I was like,
who
okay.
regularly fights Spider-Man. And that's what I want to see. Superhuman effort in killing a mob family. Bernthal mainly just shouts, runs in guns blazing, engaging
Now,
in some
I ain't gonna
crazy
front.
cool hand-to-hand, but
That
there
makes
is no
it too. I
planning
like
to
when he does his
90%
shouting,
of
but
what
it
he
is a
does.
little
Some of his
weird
best
for a
fights,
Punisher
like
to do
prison
that.
scene, are in self-defense.
But that's why I
And-
like. That's why I like John Berthel, because he gives his own definition without disrespecting Punisher, but still add a little bit more character to it. And I can respect, as long as it's done right. I don't mind that. I always say it with other characters. I don't expect you to do exactly what the book says of a certain character, as long as you don't disrespect him. I don't think John Berthel did that. He added his flavor with his acting skills, and he's a great actor. Like when he got his gun ready and the elevator opened and he saw the cops there. And he starts screaming. I love that. I love it. Then they was pushing him out and he screams back in there. Like John Berthel, he does a great Punisher. He adds his flavor to it. But if you talk about accuracy, this video is about accuracy. That's not like what you read in the comics. Stevenson is perfect when it comes to accuracy. But I gotta give the nod to John Berthel for adding his flavor
As it
to
is
it.
a streaming show, the slow pace of Bernthal's world just makes it feel like a crime drama at times. We want something over the top, gritty, and hyper violent.
Well,
My
in a
last
way,
pick
I
on my list
think
is his
I could be wrong. I think the MCU's version of the Punisher, now that it's on Disney Plus with Daredevil Born Again, I think they're gonna go more on that Stevenson route. You know, more a little over the top, like, you know, a little bit more comic accuracy of Punisher, not the Netflix version. I think you see, the reason I think of that because you see how they doing with the Daredevil show. There were some things that the Disney Plus show did that Netflix never did. You see it with all these. You can see it with the little CGI, like when he fought Bullseye in the first episode. Some of the stuff that he did there was never done in the Netflix show, and I'm like, oh, okay, they're going a little science fictional here, but I like that. You know, these are not real characters, so you don't have to like Batman. I felt like you don't have to keep it so realistic. You could go a little bit like little comic accuracy here with the action, and I think I could be wrong. I think they're gonna do that with the Punisher. We'll see. I mean, only time will tell, but it's a possibility. Cause that's how I felt with Batman. Like, as much as I love the Dark Knight and Robert Pattinson's Batman, they always trying to aim to so much as close as realism as possible. They forget that Batman, like the animated series, Arkham and stuff, had a lot of science fictional moments. That's why I love Affleck's Batman. They embrace the Dark Knight. They embraced that, like when Doomsday was shooting at him, trying to attack him, and he used the grapple hook that you saw him on the building. Use the grapple hook again. It was like that. That was cool. That's what we want to see. You know, that warehouse scene, all that stuff. But yeah. Anyway,
Isolation, his endless war. Now, they both have allies, but by the end of Warzone, Castle's only real allies is his strenuous relationship with the police. Bernthal's Castle has allies everywhere. He isn't so much isolated as he is just a loner, and yes, there is a distinction. Even when Stevenson's Punisher is getting along with other characters, he really isn't. The way Stevenson plays his isolation is just so much more effective than Bernthal's.
look at that cold
The Punisher
look.
should
Like
look
that's
like he's about to
he
clock you at any
depicted
given
Punisher
moment.
perfectly.
And Stevenson somehow balances this while still looking like he's on the verge of tears. He carries his pain with him at all times.
Yeah, you can see
and
it
this
all
look
over him.
behind his eyes, while balancing a rigid intimidation to all around him, just reminding the audience that his fuel still is burning hot. He won't stop. He is still in pain. He is fighting his one-man war at all times. Bernthal has moments of respite. He is being moody in an apartment, or he is on the run and pretending to do his best as a wrecker, or chatting up a girl at a bar. Stevenson looks like his family got gunned down yesterday at all times.
Yeah.
His isolation is pure and honest. He wouldn't be seen dead moving on with his life in any way, and I swear Bernthal just starts every season like that. If you still aren't 100% convinced that Stevenson edges out Bernthal, Punisher Warzone's Jigsaw shits all over Bernthal's Jigsaw.
Yeah, that's true.
The series is
That
still
is
hot,
true.
even with the scars. Warzone's Jigsaw is grotesque. And while we're talking about looks, Stevenson just looks more like the Punisher. Again, Bernthal is just too hot. Yes, his nose looks to be broken, and yeah, for sure he looks like a brawler, but the Punisher needs to look like a war dog, just beating the shit at all times. A little bit ugly, to be honest, and Stevenson looks ripped straight out of the comics.
Yes.
In the end, it is two amazing
there's the
portrayals,
scene.
but if we're asking ourselves which is the more brutal, more honest of the comics and just a fun ride, I've got to give it to Stevenson.
Yes.
But hey, Bernthal has the opportunity to do something that no other Punisher has had the chance to do before. He can play in the Marvel Cinematic Sandbox.
Yeah, I'm looking forward
Some of
to
the
seeing where
coolest
they go with
Punisher
this with
moments
him.
is watching how he clashes with the rest of his verse. Like when there is a wake for the villain Stiltman at the popular villain meeting place, the Bar with No Name, in Punisher War Journal Volume 2, Issue 4. Spidey comes by to pay his respects because he genuinely doesn't want his villains to be killed. Wait for Spidey to leave, and it's revealed that the Punisher was pretending to be the bartender and just blows everyone up anyway. Another story similar to that of some gun guys taking on the Sentry in the Thunderbolts movie is the Punisher doing the exact same thing, only this time alone, as he tries to assassinate Norman Osborn on a world stage, a god versus a stubborn prick with a gun. Or when he steals War Machine's armor to finally bring peace to the Middle East.
They go that route
only
with
to
the
get in
MCU? That would be
conflict with the
insane.
entire Avengers lineup
I'm for it,
after
though.
trying to bring that same justice back to American soil against Hydra. This story ends with Castle being arrested and Nick Fury gloating that he won, to which Castle says, 24 prison guards were killed by Hydra and rioting convicts. Ghost escaped. Baron Zemo escaped. The Supreme Commander is still alive. And you consider tonight a win? That is why I am not on your team. And when we get stories like that, I'll concede and admit that Bernthal has beaten Ray Stevenson's masterpiece, Punisher Warzone. If you want my recommendations for good Punisher reading material, look up any of the following. Jason Aaron's Punisher Max Kingpin from 2009, Matthew Rosenberg's The Punisher Volume Issues 218 to 228 from 2016. These are the issues where he's wearing the War Machine armor. Any of Punisher Warzones, either the
that's the one I
1992
read.
version, the 2008 version, or the 2012s, although I do have a soft spot for 2012s. And lastly, any Punisher story written by Garth Ennis. The guy just understands the character. Read those and watch all these movies. They're all worthy of a watch, and come to your own decision.
That was good. That was a good watch. Definitely go check that video out. I'm gonna put the link in the description. But yeah, I'm glad he said that. It's nice to see the Warzone Punisher get love. I said it like ever since that movie came out. Ray Stevenson, from the people I was around and the stuff I heard, like back then when that came out, it wasn't social media, wasn't really a thing. But people went like word to mouth. Warzone's not good. This and that. This and that. And granted, like I said, the movie itself was a couple over the top moments, and the writing wasn't the best. But if you want the Punisher, you go right to that movie. If you want, I read this in a Punisher book, I want to see this in live action. He was the best depiction. Like I said, without Ray Stevenson, I could see that movie being trash. Ray Stevenson and the brutality of him and the way he depicted Frank Castle, on top of the good action. I mean, outside of that chandelier scene, the good action, it was some great brutal action in that movie. But the way Ray Stevenson, you could tell Ray Stevenson read books on Frank Castle. He didn't want to put his own twist on it or nothing. He just wanted to be, excuse me, he wanted to be exactly what the comics showed. I like that. And he was done very well. Now, I was glad that we saw eye to eye because I did say it was between him or John Berthel. And yeah, Ray Stevenson definitely is the winner. But let me know in the comment section what you think about it. Actually, I'm curious. Before watching this video, I'm going on record saying Ray Stevenson in Warzone is absolutely the most comic accurate portrayal. Yes, he is. Before even watching it, yep. Points to Stevenson. Berthels, I think I get his name wrong. But anyway, Punisher is way too outwardly emotional. That's what I was saying. He has a lot of outward, like he has a lot of emotions. No. Like he does all that stuff. I don't think it's bad in my opinion. It's just John's version, like John's take. Little he adds to the Frank Castle. I don't think it's bad, but he does have a lot more emotion than I'm used to of Punisher. Where everything and everyone gets a rise out of him. Yeah. Stevenson's Punisher turned his heart to stone. Yeah, he really did. He was caring, like he saved like the lady and her child, but you have to see the movie to know what I'm talking about. Stevenson's Punisher is just as underrated as Urban. Yes, that is something I am shocked we never got a Dredd 2. Keith Urban's, or was that his name? Urban. I would say Urban. Urban's depiction of Dredd was perfect. I am shocked they never continued that one. Did it not do? It must not have done well in the box office. Like when you see Urban's depiction of Judge Dredd, it was perfect. You know, him and Ray Steve. That's a good comparison, I should say. But yeah, let me know in the comment section what you feel about it. But yeah, watch Warzone again. If you did already, you're like, check it out one more time and just look at Ray Stevenson. Or you just watch clips. I know YouTube probably has some movie clips. But anyway, thank y'all so much for tuning in. I'll check you later.